Welcome to the Rural Missions Podcast. We exist to enable rural churches in God's mission. So join us now as we hear stories of hope from across the UK. So welcome back to the Rural Missions Podcast. Now, we are doing things a little bit differently from here on in that I now host a Pure Brunch radio show 10 till 12 every Wednesday over on Pure247 Radio. And this podcast is now going to be reflecting that. And so we now have a new feature called Faith in the Everyday, where each week we're going to be interviewing a new guest, talking about their faith, what it means for them, some encouragements, the good news stories, the hope that they're seeing, and what that can mean for us as we lean into that together. So please enjoy this, our first Faith in the Everyday, and I'll be joined by a very special guest. Enjoy. Our first guest here on Faith in the Everyday. Why don't you say hello and tell us, who are you?
Hello, my name's Stephi, and I am excited to be considered a very special guest. So yeah, my name's Stephi Scott. I actually work with Bob at Rural Missions alongside him, and I live in Gloucestershire. I'm married with kids. I love the outdoors. I love going to church, all of those things. I could tell you lots of things, Bob. What do you want to know?
Well, every week when we have a guest on, I've got 8 simple questions that we're going to go through together. So you are our first case, you're our first guest, and you are a special guest. I love to work alongside you, and I thought let's kick off with a strong start. So thank you for joining us, Stephi. So you've started a little bit there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
So yeah, as I said, I work alongside Bob at Rural Missions. I start at the beginning. I live in the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire. It's lovely. It's rural, so it kind of gives me some actual local context for some of the work I do, working with rural churches. But yeah, married with 2 lovely daughters who are 4-year-old twin girls, so they keep me quite busy, if I'm really honest with you, and up in the night still and all of that fun stuff. But yeah, love the outdoors, I could walk out my door and I'm into woods and fields, and that's probably where I'm happiest, if I'm really honest with you.
That's good. And especially, as you say, with twin 4-year-olds, you probably want to walk out the door and just have a breather once in a while. So being in a lovely environment is far better than what I do with my 5-year-old. I walk outside and it's street after street after street. It's not as conducive to a relaxation atmosphere as it sounds like you've got, Steph.
Yeah, absolutely. Being out in nature is so refreshing, isn't it? And I can suddenly walk into fields, and as much as I love people, I love it when I go for a walk and I don't see anybody. It's just me and the world around me, which is really nice.
That's good. So this is Faith in the Everyday. So why don't you tell us, what does an everyday, ordinary week look like for Stephi?
Yeah, well, it varies week to week, obviously, but the nuts and bolts of it is that I spend Monday to Friday, sometimes weekends, but doing work with Rural Missions. So that's having conversations meeting with churches, leaders, faithful followers of Jesus who just want to explore what mission could look like for them. How can they take the love of Jesus into their community? And as I said, I have a real heart for rural places, but also I really believe in the power of the local church. So it's an honor and a privilege in my professional life, to be able to spend Monday to Friday thinking and talking about mission and about what church could look like and how it could support their communities. But outside of work, my life is taken up with my own local church, and whether it's serving on the different teams in my church or doing house groups and meals together, it's that's my week is shaped around church ultimately, I feel.
And family, I hope.
And family, of course. My family come to church with me, and we do it together. And yeah, I get up at whatever time the children wake me up every morning, And so I haven't had a lion in 4 years, which I'm sure if you're a parent, you completely understand and relate to that. So a lot of my week's also shaped around: have I kept my daughters alive? Have I given them dinner? Are they dressed? Where are they supposed to be this today? Who's looking after them? Who's the babysitter? All those things too, which it's exciting, but I won't lie, can be awfully tiring at the same time.
Yeah, especially because you've got two that are twins. And so I know that when one goes ill within the next few days, you're going to have to look after the other one. And it's quite a rampant behavior of let's deal with one thing, then the next, and almost that circle.
It feels, anyone who's young children knows that they get sick all the time. But yeah, it seems to be just not non-stop. One's better, then the next one's ill, and then they're ill, and then it just goes on and on and on with everything. But it's also a great pleasure to be able to have two little children to bring us joy and life and laughter into the family. So
That's great. That's great. So we're going to explore what encouragement, what laughter, and all of those good things look like as we continue our conversation. We've just had a little bit of a catch up, got to know him, about his family, where he's situated. But now on to some great questions. Well, I think they're great questions. Obviously, I'm going to be asking them every week, so they best be good ones and good for us. So, Steph, can you tell me what has encouraged you recently?
Oh, it's a great question, and something I keep coming back to is that my church, this Pentecost Sunday, we had a like a churches together meeting. So there's 10 churches in Cirencester, the town I go to church in, and all 10 churches were involved in this Pentecost service, and each had a different part to play, so brought something unique about their style of worship, or something that brings them life and joy within their church community. And it was this messy, molded together service where we all got to participate. And there's parts of it where I felt slightly uncomfortable because I didn't kind of get what was going on, because it's outside of my normal style. Other bits I was really comfortable with, but it was just this incredible sense of unity. And this thing, despite these differences, despite that we're not all comfortable with everything that we're doing, we are united in the person of Jesus. And it's one of those like really kind of, I think, rare moments in our modern world and culture where we so easily divide and draw these lines between group A and group B and us and them, where these people with these differences came together and it felt like we were one family, which I guess biblically we are one family, we are one church. And it was just a really encouraging thing to see that actually we are united, and it was just really, really special that people could come together and do that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There is something great in that we put differences aside, and it's not just within a church setting, but when people unite behind something good that is honest, that is favourable, then I think that is a beautiful space to be operating in. So that's great. Good encouragement, seeing hundreds of people.
We're not entirely sure on the numbers. I think 400-ish people in a not a particularly large town coming together, which was really, really encouraging.
Yeah, that's amazing. So one of the questions that we want to explore is, where have you seen good news in everyday life? So this isn't necessarily about your faith, but it could be a conversation, it could be an act that you've seen, it could be whatever you want it to be. But could you tell us a good news story that you've seen recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, there's quite a few, but one that really struck me is really simple. It's nothing overly profound, but I bumped into somebody, a friend, that who lives on the same road as me, and I was walking the dog, he was walking his dog, and he said, "Oh, so and so mentioned that you go to church, and we don't know each other that well, so it's like, you go to church." And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I was like, "How did you hear that?" And kind of told me the connections, and then he said, "Oh, I've been starting to go to the named the church, this church in town." And he didn't really have a reason why he started going to it, but he just felt that he should go to this church. And he's admitted that this church isn't particularly, his style. He doesn't know what's going on. It's quite a formal, traditional church, and he's a really unchurched, unfamiliar person with that sort of environment. But what really the good news there is, I think that this guy doesn't even really know why he's being drawn, but I sense it's like, it's the Holy Spirit is drawing him to something, to search for meaning, to search for something greater. And it's there's just this like awareness and this like almost awakening in people who are searching for something more real, searching for a solid foundation or a solid truth. And that's just one story, but I've got many others of encounters similar to that where people are being drawn towards faith, drawn towards figuring out who Jesus is and what church might mean for them. And I'm finding that just really encouraging. It's these small little conversations I'm having all over the place with people who are really open to searching.
Yeah. And actually I've been talking about that in the first hour of this Pure Brunch show, and looking at what does it mean for those everyday connections, for those people that we just stop and we share stories, and people are looking for that kind of connection. And as you said, your good news story is not a massive bells and whistles. It's I saw somebody, we had a great conversation as I was able to speak into something, and like that is an incredible good news story to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also just goes to show that, if you are a follower of Jesus, and that actually it's something about being embedded within your local community, doing everyday life with people is really important. I'm not saying turn every conversation into a sermon or into having to, talk about forgiveness and sin and the gospel. No, but it's about how am I just participating in the life of my community in a way that brings, that points people towards something beyond me, if that makes sense, and that helps cultivate life and hope and joy and peace and generosity and compassion in all the people around me. And often that then leads to those conversations of like, why you're so generous? Why are you so generous? And then you get to talk about Jesus. I think it's, again, in those moments they're not shying away for the reason I'm doing those things. So it's like kind of living in community, living out a faithful, Christ-centered sort of life is really, really important to having those conversations, I think.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. I think that is a great point to just take a little break on, for us to mull over, like, what might it mean for us today or this week to be having those conversations. I've been encouraging us all morning, how can we be the light in someone's life today? And it doesn't need to take massive acts of generosity and service, but simple conversation and simple acts can go a huge, long way for them, and could be remembered for weeks, months, years to come. We just don't understand the difference that we could make by being generous with our time and our resources. Steffi, next question. A big one. What keeps you going when life is difficult?
Oh, it's a bit of a heavy question before pre-lunch, but that's okay. So what keeps me going when life gets difficult? Well, at the root and the foundation of that is, I've got to say, it is my faith. It's my relationship with the person of Jesus. That he, even in his teaching, he's like, come to me, all who are, who are weary, or tired, struggling. He says, come to me. And, when we come to him, he says, he uses words like, my burden is light. And he's saying, life's easier when you do it with me. I will take on some of those struggles and those burdens for you. I will help you carry them. And that's not always easy to remember. And just, in the moment where life's a struggle and it's getting difficult to be, we're so easy to keep our heads down and just keep pushing and trying to go on our own. But actually to pause and to stop and be like, Lord Jesus, I need your help. Help me in this. And I can't really explain it, but something kind of miraculous happens in that, where you get filled with peace, anxiety is calmed, and sometimes life's still difficult, but my attitude and like how I feel going through the tough times changes. And sometimes we ask for miracles and Jesus brings healing, or he brings freedom from whatever the trouble is, and that's really amazing. So alongside Jesus, I think it's things like being in community and relationships as well. I'm really blessed to have an amazing supportive wife and family who care for me and want the best for me, want to see me flourish and thrive. So they do all they can do to help support that. Also being plugged into a good church community who you can do the same thing as well. I think those are probably like the three things. Jesus at the top of that, but then also family and community around you to really bring you through those difficult moments.
Yeah, that's great. And yet again, it's that encouragement that we all need people. We need those lights in our lives, people to cheer us on and support us and stand with us in the difficult times too. Now, Steffi, you have somewhat answered the next question already, so I'll leave it up to you how you want to respond. But what role does faith, hope, and purpose play in your life?
Oh, what a question. I love this question. So I've been dwelling a lot on purpose. What is our purpose for generally as humanity? Like what is our purpose? What are we called to do? Why has God placed us here? And I've been dwelling a lot on what it says in Genesis, that humanity is placed in this garden, which was very good, and they were given the words described, given their purpose was to work and to keep, and then to subdue and have dominion. And I think we can use those words to help us think about what my purpose in life now should be. It's that to work and to keep is to see what is good, what is special, what is very good about this environment I'm in, and to work to maintain that, to protect it, to cultivate more of the good stuff in life. So that could be that's peace and happiness and joy and all those things around us we see, practical things as well. It's not just spiritual, it's actually physical, real life stuff around us. What needs protecting? What is good? That's part of my calling as a human being, is to protect that. And then the words subdue and have dominion, it's hard for us because we have distorted views of what those words mean. It sounds like control and power, but in the context there of the story in Genesis, it's more of this idea of looking out into the world around us and seeing the potential, seeing where things are maybe slightly more chaotic, not ordered, and seeing the potential to make things good, to bring things into order. So it's looking out and seeing the brokenness and the fractures we see in society and the world around me. That could be with my neighbours, but it could be globally, looking at all the injustice, seeing injustice and trying to find a way to bring justice and righteousness and hope to those situations. And the more I meditate on that, the more it's like, that makes everyday life a lot more simple. I think often as Christians, we have this idea that we're trying to really seek out what is God's specific calling for my life. And, sometimes he has that unique calling for unique people. But I think at the base, it's just like, I want you to go and work and to keep and subdue and have dominion. Join with me in making this creation, this thing that I've made, even better. And I think, and it's really profound that it turns every day, a Christian plumber can subdue and have dominion, working to keep by fixing broken pipes. A Christian artist can, joins in God in creating and making a better world by making something beautiful out of raw materials. A Christian manager displays the glory of God by managing with compassion and generosity and kindness. So it makes life really simple at the base level, which is really encouraging.
Great. Well, I think you've certainly lifted us up a little bit there, Steph. I think it's some real good insight and interesting to see how faith and hope can really play a part in your lives and our lives too. Now, I'm still joined by our special guest, Steffi, in our Faith in the Everyday section. So, final two questions for you. Question number one, Steph. What is one lesson that life has taught you?
Oh, some of these questions are pretty deep, and I want to be upfront that I'm not that old, so I haven't had that much life. Definitely not as much life experience and as life as you've lived, Bob.
Thanks for that,
a
Steph.
vast age difference between me and you, and so lesson. I think when you sent me these questions through earlier, and I was reflecting on it, and I think it's that life is just surprising, and it's to really not to overly to plan and have too many concrete dreams and hopes for your life, because life rarely goes the direction that we assume it's going to, and sometimes that could be a bad thing. Sometimes it's our hopes and our dreams aren't met, and we're left unsatisfied or let down by just the circumstances that life has. But on the flip side of that, sometimes things happen better than you expect, and situations and outcomes come from things that you never could have even dreamed of, which is amazing. So life's an adventure, and it's have plans and hopes and dreams, but don't build your life around those foundations, because life's unpredictable and crazy, and that's fun and also scary all at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've decided on live radio to be calling out how much older I am than you, Steph. So thank you for that, especially being your boss during the daytime. It's an interesting choice. And if life has taught you another lesson, that's probably one for the books as well, I'd have thought.
Yeah, maybe, but I couldn't help have a little dig. If people joined our regular team meetings, they would know that those sort of sarcastic jokes come out every now and again.
Yeah, they certainly do. We have quite a sarcastic team at times. So, Steffi, final question. Obviously, we've had people listening today. It's been great to be able to chat to you and have a listen to some of your answers and what faith in the everyday looks like for you. So what would you say to somebody who's listening who needs some encouragement?
Yeah, I would just say, whether you are a person of faith or you're not, whether you feel like you have a relationship with Jesus or not, I would say that we have a God who deeply cares for you, who deeply loves you, who wants to know you, and he wants you to know him. His name's Jesus, and he's always there for you. So my encouragement would be is just to reach out to him and pray, and to try and just draw closer to him today. Give each moment to him. And sometimes that means just be really honest. Invite Jesus into the thing you need encouragement for, and just say, hey, I'm really struggling here, and just see what happens.
Great. That's a great encouragement. A brilliant thing to be ending our Faith in the Everyday segment for this week. Now, Steffi, if anyone wants to explore more about what you do during the day for a job, where would they find you?
So you can find me over at rawmissions.org.uk will be our website, and everything we do is there. You can just go to the contact bit there and contact us and say you want to speak with me, and I'll be there.
Or even message at Rural Missions on Insta and Facebook too. So a huge amount to think about, to reflect on. Thank you so much, Steffi, for joining us today. And may God go with you.
Thank you.
To find out how we can support your church, head to ruralmissions.org.uk.